Yep.
I have a story that I'd like to tell about my daddy, Earl Porter, when I was a little girl. My daddy was a pretty good carpenter, and he could make stuff and make whatever. And something just told him to fix another door on the back of the house that was a little stronger. So he did, but instead of it open coming into your house, he had it open and out onto the porch. And so anyway, Daddy went on to Japan. There were some people that was living next door, and one night we could hear the radio going in the car. And then all of a sudden, somebody was trying to break in on us. See, they shared our mailbox. They knew when Mama got her government check. So all of a sudden, somebody was banging on the door, trying to get in, just pushing themselves up against it.
I bet y'all were scared.
I was scared to death. Mama was scared, but she didn't act like she's scared. She acted like she was some 6-foot guy, and she's only 5'3". And so, buddy, she hollers real loud, and she says, "Y'all better get out of here, or I'm going to kill you with my shotgun."
Uh-oh.
And, buddy, they took off. Well, then just a little bit later, we was hearing some music in the car. And they was trying to get the car to get out of there. But they finally left. And that was the last time we ever had any trouble. And eventually they moved. But they were after the money we had.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, my mother was a brave little red-headed lady. I'll tell you, she was young then, but she was not...
How old was she when Grandpa went to war?
Okay, she was 16 when she had me. She was probably 22.
And she had you, and then Austin, and was Aunt Linda born yet?
I don't think Linda was born yet.
Okay, so she had two little ones by herself. Yes. during the war.
Well, there's 3 years difference between me and Austin, so I'm not sure that she had Austin. I think she did though. I think he was real young.
Yeah,
baby-like maybe.
Yeah.
But anyway,
did she have to work? You know, a lot of women had to take jobs during the war. Did she have to do that?
Mama did not work during the war. Mama took care of her kids and did the best she could on the little bit of money that Daddy sent. Now, in the beginning, when I was a baby, I was born in Nebraska.
Right.
Kearney, Nebraska. Mama was up there by herself without anybody, no relatives, nobody.
And Grandpa was off at war at that time?
Daddy was off at war at that time.
Okay. Okay.
And the other time that this other one happened when he went to Japan
after the war.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now this time I'm a baby. We're in Nebraska, Kearney, Nebraska. Mama has no family. She's only like 18.
Yeah.
By that time. She was 17 and a half when I was born. And so finally she got rid of her pride, and she sat down, she wrote my grandmother, which was my dad's mama, and told her the situation and asked her if she and me, she says, can me and Earlene come there to stay? We have nothing. And she says yes, and how much is a train ticket? And Grandmama sent money to them.
Oh wow, that must have been
that was
hard.
Well, she says, I got the rest of them living with me. You might as well come on too, because her girls were living with her, and grandkids, you know. So
yeah.
Anyway, I had a cousin that was 6 months younger than me. So anyway, we got on a train. I don't remember none of this because I was a baby.
Right.
I just remember my mama's stories.
Yeah.
So we go to Milton, Florida.
Yeah.
Live up on. My grandfather was a what do you call him?
A train engineer.
Yeah, something like that. And he worked at the railroad, which was right just above their house. And so they had to keep a good eye on all of us, you know, because of the trains. But yeah. So anyway, we went there, and I guess I was like, by then I might have been a year old. I might not have been. I might have been close to it.
Right.
I must have been because Kenneth was 6 months, so I must have been a year old. So anyway, we lived there for a while, and somebody told me when my daddy came back from then. They told me, said it was out on the porch, and says, Earlene, your daddy did come back, didn't he? And I said, no, not my daddy. I went in the house and got my daddy's picture, and I went back out there. I said, this my daddy. This my daddy. And it really, mother said it really made me mad because they said that that man that came home was my daddy. And my first, I wanted to call him Earl because that's what mother called him. And then he was calling her Doris. My first whipping, mother said I got from daddy was calling my mother Doris because he had told me so many times not to do it.
Yeah.
And finally he got tired of saying, I'm going to whip you the next time. So the next time finally came and he spanked me.
Uh-oh.
And I never called her Doris again. I called her Mama.
Yeah.
And Mama, my grandmother, which I absolutely adored, which I would love for you to point up there to her picture. That's now as many years later of the time that we're talking about, and they got one next to it is my grandfather. My grandmother was the most wonderful person, was absolutely precious, like my mother, but she took care of me and Kenneth a lot, and sometimes Mother and Aunt Von Steele would want to go to a movie, but sometimes they took us. And so, but now the first spanking I got from my daddy was calling Mother Doris. And I think my mama would have wanted to spank me as I was just learning to talk. And now you got to remember this was during the Depression. Right. They didn't have much money for stuff. But her and Aunt Elmer had nickeled and dimed, and they had a little bit of money, and a man come by with fruit cakes, and they bought one. And they told all the kids, don't y'all tell your daddy now that we bought this fruitcake. Don't you dare tell them. They didn't think about me, though, because as soon as my daddy walked in the house, I took him by the finger and I said, Daddy moan, come on, Daddy, come. And I went and I says, cake.
You little tattletale.
I sure did. Told on them.
You little tattletale.
Yep.
Oh, my.
But life, as I grew, I can remember my grandfather. I remember him putting me on his knee and shaking me up and down, playing with my pug nose and all that. But they had a hard life back then.
Yeah.
My grandfather was an alcoholic also. I think it had a lot to do with what he did for a living. Being a trained whatever he was hard during those days. He was gone a lot.
And that what you're talking about, your dad's dad?
My dad's dad.
Okay.
My mother was raised up, her mother didn't want her.
Right.
And she lived with an aunt that was an alcoholic. She went for a short time after that, for a very short time, back to Georgia with another relative. Her daddy, actually, at that time.
Yeah,
but her daddy...
She bounced around a little bit as a teenager.
Yes. She was there when... Well, he was married to some other lady, and she was very mean to my mother.
Yeah.
She took her hands and put it on a hot saw and blistered them. And because she asked the boys to go with them to clean their daddy's grave off. That's what she got burned for. Yeah, she had a hard life. She lived with a woman that was very mean to her. Very, very mean to her. But you know what? My mother, even though she had all those hardships, she had hard times getting up and down. Even as a young person, she had muscular dystrophy. Now it didn't affect her like it does some people. You wouldn't have known that's what was wrong with her, except when she couldn't get up really easy and everything. But my mother was.
She was a tough cookie.
She was a very tough cookie. She put up with an alcoholic for probably over 20 years. My dad was a bad alcoholic because of the war and all that went on in there and things that happened. I'm not giving him an excuse, but it is one of the causes that does cause alcoholism.
Yeah.
And Mother had a really hard life. We had a hard life. I had a hard life as a child.
Yeah.
I used to think I hated him when I was younger because he could be so mean. Of course, later on in life, I found out that I never really did. I loved him. I was just saddened because of what he did.
When did he start making furniture?
He didn't start making furniture until he retired
Okay,
from the military.
so a good bit later.
Yeah, a good bit later.
I think one time you told me when you were young, or after the war, he worked in a bakery or something.
Yeah, he did. He worked in a bakery, and doggone it, he was a good baker too. My dad could bake anything. Daddy was a good cook. My mother was a good cook. My dad.